Other spectrum could come through sharing at 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. So bands that in Europe are used at times for military or governmental use. Spectrum could come at 5 gigahertz. So, I mean, at 1.5, that is not very much used for radio broadcast. So there's not a single answer. But of course there are priorities, and it's very clear to all of us, especially when you want to get a very quick coverage of a country with ultra-fast broadband. The first option is frequencies below 1 gigahertz. That's why they are so precious. That's why there's such an emphasis. Unfortunately, they are also the most used one, and that's why then there's a conflict of interest of users that want to use the frequencies, and frequency regulator have a little bit to, jiggle with balls and find a solution. The other point is that we are not alone. We have neighbors. The neighbors can come from the EU or can come from the outside the EU. And neighbors tend to use the spectrum not the way we want to use it. And that is posing another degree of challenge in new spectrum policies. If my neighbor wants to use the spectrum for broadcasting and I want to use it for mobile communication, somehow we need to agree. And my neighbor might say, well, my spectrum has been cleared by a regional conference, so with my transmitters I do what I want. Of course, the radio regulation nowadays, especially for the 800 megahertz, cater for equal rights, mobile broadcasting, but equal rights. There's not one that is above the other. In Europe, in the EU member states, the Parliament and Council have decided that as per 1st of January 2013, the 800 megahertz spectrum should be freed and released for 4G, for advanced broadband. You will see in a moment that a few member states are in more or less in time with this kind of deadline. There are many cases where people have two types of problem. One is about my neighbors, or organizing the spectrum to avoid interference or getting interfered by my neighbors. And the other one is broadcasting, how I reorganize the spectrum to make sure that I do not disrupt broadcasting. Concerning my neighbors, RSPG has a little answer that is, has put together a system of mutual help, if you like. It is nothing compulsory, but if a country has a problem, can call the RSPG, to discuss the problem and give an advice how to solve the problem. That is, of course, valid and in a way easy, if you like, for countries within the EU, but also, RSPG is willing to help and give advice to the Commission and the Member State in case there's a discussion outside the EU. So I'm insisting on this point because I'm well aware that one of the issues being discussed in Greece is about how we get reorganized the 800 megahertz, and for the time being the 800, maybe in future the 700, considering, the interference environment that we have around. I think there's no easy answer. But one of the answers is that there's a possibility not to do it alone, but to ask the help of the EU and the other member states. It's a little bit what, in the early days, the economic regulators did with market analysis. They started on a voluntary basis to share information how to analyze a market and give advice one to each other. Then this system has been institutionalized in the reform of 2009, and now it's the rule. You have to submit your market analysis to BEREC that gives an advice to the Commission that then gives you the final advice. Now, this system in spectrum is very similar in terms of concept, but is at the stage one, so it is not compulsory. Now, the first focus I want to make, and that is an express request of Mr. Cannello's, and every request of Mr. Cannello is an order to me. It's about the 800 megahertz. So what's happening in Europe, what happened in Europe? Now, in this slide that I'm sure you cannot read, but it is in the record, so basically I summarized what happened in Spain, in Italy, in France, and in Germany. Now, what is the message that comes out of this slide? I'm not going to read all this stuff, but what is the message that comes out of this slide? Nobody did the same thing. everybody invented the national cuisine. I mean, pasta, wurst, and croque monsieur, whatever. It's a little bit impressive to find it in a single slide. I mean, in terms of coverage, most of the countries decided for selective coverage obligation. You go where there's digital divide, and that is Italy, Germany, and France. But France made it also a little bit like the Spanish. I mean, they went also for national coverage. In terms of packaging of the spectrum, you see that Italy and Germany went for a very broad multi-frequency auction. France did it at 2 different stages, focalizing on the 800, and Spain went a little bit midway. In terms of the auction mechanism, I mean, most of them were multiple round auction, except France, which was a single sealed bill. So, I mean, that is a little bit impressive, I must say. Of course, when now a country reflects about planning the 800 megahertz auction, can take the best of, I mean, and make a little bit of mix. I think this is a point where, when you see it from the company perspective, and having always in mind this idea of the single broadband market, I mean, a company has to make 27 different bids and 27 different mechanisms, and this is costing a lot of money. And there's another effect of this type of situation. That is this one. Prices in Europe are actually very different. And not always the explanation is, but it's GDP per head, it's this mobile penetration, because you might say, I look at Germany and Italy, they have a very high mobile penetration, that's why the price per head, per inhabitant, per megahertz, it's very similar, 4.9, 4.8. But then you look at the Netherlands or you look at Sweden, I mean, they also have a very high penetration. So I think this variation of prices indicates that, of course, I mean, the procedure very much influences the outcome, and also a little bit, let me say, the wishes of the finance ministers that are behind a little bit tend to, I mean, somehow influence the game. And this is not a very good thing, because, I mean, the price per megahertz should be just reflecting the economic value of the megahertz, not the expectation of the finance minister or whoever has an expectation that this is a money machine. Another point is that comes out of this slide. Very few countries have actually run the auction. So we are approaching 1st of January 2013. Well, in principle, all of Europe should be now having auctioned the 800 megahertz, but this is not happening. So Europe is really lagging behind in terms of LTE. So now the Commission will have to make a lot of effort to pressure those countries that are a little bit lagging behind in order to really make sure that we have a coordinated introduction of LTE all over Europe. Another point is that if you sum the 27 and you compare the price that an American company pays for the spectrum compared to the European notional company, I mean, that offers simultaneously in the 27 countries, the European notional company pays much more. And that is not a very good thing for this sector. So what is the message I want to give you? I mean, you can package the auction as you like, you can do certain things, but always have in mind that this exercise is about efficiency and allocation of the spectrum for companies then to do business. It is not the reverse. I mean, all of the sector delivering something to reach an economic objective in selling the spectrum. Now, a little bit of insight as a national proud, allow me, just 2 slides, then the rest is Europe, about what went on in Italy. In Italy, we decided to go for the multi-frequency auction, and we packaged a number of bands together. So it was the largest auction ever we had in the country. And we decided to package together the 800, 1800, 2.6. Actually, we did also the refarming